Robocop is one of my all-time favorite films. It's masterful, subversive entertainment. Paul Verhoeven deftly blends the over-the-top cartoonish action with an affecting story of a man resurrected, trying to regain control of what life he has left. Alex Murphy is a new cop on the streets of Detroit, and he's barely out 5 minutes before he is gunned down by Clarence Boddicker and his crew, in front of his new partner Lewis. What follows is the story of how Murphy is transformed into Robocop, and how he comes to realize that his killers are employed by the very company that rebuilt him, who ultimately have final control over his possible actions. Murphy is basically unkillable in this film, so his character's arc becomes regaining some of who he once was, some form of identity outside of Robocop. He spends almost the entire film only speaking in basic phrases,
"Let the woman go, you are under arrest,"
with his face covered before slowly his words become more personal.
"Looking for me?"
And his more human face is revealed. In a way, that change is developed through the action too. Robocop is heavy on action, but it always feels there for a specific reason. First, we see the destruction of Murphy. Then we are shown what he is capable of, leading to 3 escalating run-ins with Boddicker's gang. After which he is almost ruined by those he was built to protect, before finally using what he has learned previously both as human and cyborg to work around his own directives and defeat the various antagonists. He is killed once and then later almost killed again. The first time around he is rebuilt on someone else's terms, but the second time it is on his own terms. By the end of the film, he regains some humanity, whilst learning to fully control his newer robotic augmentations. This isn't a mindless one-man army film, but a film about a weapon, one that is discovering where it came from and what it is. Made in a decade so obsessed with the glamorization of the military and so affected by Cold War thinking, a film about the militarization of a police force as the foundation of a new utopia, and the ghosts in a shell and dangerous glitches of the new technology that is needed to make that feel so prescient and important. Seeing the weapon that is Robocop in action is always exhilarating, but that's because Verhoeven lets us sit back and enjoy it. Like much of the great 80s action, it is usually clear and easy to follow, but here what is going on in the sequences is really important to who Robocop is as a character. He is designed only to stop criminals, usually violently. That is what he is. In his first collars, he doesn't even hang around after stopping the bad guys, and barely aids the victims.
"Your move, creep."
We need to see this as it's part of the evolution of the character. What Verhoeven really brings to the action is clarity. Everything is well covered and the editing is in support of what is happening on screen. In the remake, Robocop pretty much just shoots anywhere, and we see robots getting shot. We don't particularly establish where they are, instead only seeing what has been shot after Robo is fired. Always follow the gun, the firing, and then the aftermath. However, in the original Robocop, we almost always get at least one shot of a criminal aiming first, before seeing Robocop fire. That one extra shot each time adds so much. We get a sense of geography and direction and of course tension. Robocop might be invincible, but it's a gunfight. We still need to feel that maybe someone might just get the drop on him. And of course we are setting up Robo's skill. We see that the bad guys had time to aim, but Robocop still gets the kill. These sequences always happen in spaces we spent time in previously, so the actual location is really easy for us to understand, and it allows us to sit back and get into the narrative of what is happening. We aren't trying to work it all out due to unclear geography and fast edits, and man, do I love going back and seeing these good old shaky cam free action films. Thank God too for the 180-degree line. Everything happens along one plane. I bring this up often, but it can be so helpful in a gunfight to keep the audience's understanding of what is happening clear. If a bad guy shoots to the right, Robocop shoots to the left. If that plane changes, we cut to a wider shot, or an exaggerated movement to show the change in direction. Simple. Even in the car chases, Verhoeven adds moments that set up our understanding of the geography. 2 cars here are about to meet. They aren't directly heading for one another, but we are setting up a meeting. Verhoeven uses cinematic language to establish that. Lewis moves from left to right, and Clarence right to left. Immediately we sense that they are going to come into inevitable contact, which builds tension. In the later fights, we see a looser Robocop, one more free. The fighting is less matter-of-fact and perfunctory and instead feels more personal. We can feel the difference in the character. When he shoots Dick Jones, he doesn't just do one shot through the heart like he would earlier, but fires 3 bursts that send him through the window. It's an overkill we wouldn't expect from the earlier, more automaton-like character, but this guy funded the group that took Alex Murphy from his family. Robocop isn't here to make an arrest. This is revenge. This is human. It's interesting that in a film so much about a cyborg, a body count action film no less, that it would explore so much about humanity. The most effective creation in the film by far is Robocop, who makes short work of the animalistic Ed 209 units that he comes up against. It is the humans he is designed to protect that do the most damage to him, humans he will not rise up against and fight. I'd be remiss not to mention how bloody this film is, something lacking in all of its derivatives. Even the sequel toned down the cartoonishness, whilst ironically adding a more comic book-like color palette and using a script from comic writer Frank Miller. That film aimed for something more brutal, which is a real misunderstanding of what Robocop is about. Verhoeven films always use a hell of a lot of blood. You can't say it's realistic, but it's impactful and cinematic. He wants the deaths to mean something, to stay with you. Death is important in his films. It might be humorous, and this is a very funny film, but it is satire. He is saying something about us, about humanity.
Dick, I'm very disappointed.
The increasingly weightless, bloodless action of the sequels and remake completely misunderstood this. The gore isn't just there for entertainment, it is saying something. And that's what's so fantastic about Robocop. Everything says something.
I like it!
It's an 80s action film about a cyborg called Robocop, with gags and over-the-top effects. On paper it sounds silly, but that's sort of the point. Verhoeven used the tropes he saw in films at the time as his paint, with action as his paintbrush. He crafted a masterpiece from what he saw in the blockbuster entertainment of the time. One that both is a bombastic American action film and is all about American bombast. This isn't just action as entertainment, but action as statement.
I'd buy that for $1.